Hello, my dear friends. How are you doing? Hope you are having an amazing day and not having to deal with drama. Ready for new stories I have for you today? Let's go to the first one. And don't forget to listen to the end of the story, guys, to hear my insights. Enjoy the stories, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to leave a comment. I'm 37 years old, and this pregnancy has turned my life completely upside down. After years of trying to recover after my divorce, I was finally beginning to feel like I could move forward. But now, my sister is convinced that I'm pregnant with her husband's child, and no amount of explaining seems to change her mind. The stress and heartache have been overwhelming, and I don't know how to make things right. To give some background, I was married for nearly 2 decades to my high school sweetheart. We met as teenagers, fell in love, and basically grew up together. We were inseparable, but about a year ago, he came back home with some news. My husband left me for his younger secretary. It felt like my whole world ended. I had imagined us growing old together, having children. I had no idea anything was wrong, and then suddenly, my partner of nearly 2 decades was gone. After the divorce, I fell into a deep depression. I stopped going out, stopped seeing friends, and spent months isolated in my home. It wasn't just the emotional pain, it was also a sense of shame. I felt like I'd failed at the one relationship I thought would last forever. My friends tried to help, encouraging me to get out of the house, but it took a long time before I finally agreed to go out. I was scared, nervous, and still heartbroken. But I thought, maybe, just maybe, a night out would remind me that life could still be enjoyable. When I finally agreed to a night out, it turned into something I could have never anticipated. My friends and I went to a bar, and I tried my best to relax. The drinks flowed, the music played, and for the first time in months, I let my guard down. That's when I ran into 2 familiar faces. Jake, my sister's best friend's husband, and Alex, my sister's husband. They were already there when I arrived, and it felt oddly comfortable to see people I knew. Both of them were in good spirits, and we ended up chatting for a while. Jake had always been a charming, easygoing guy. Over the years, I'd noticed a certain chemistry between us. Something unspoken, but definitely present. We never acted on it, of course. I was married, he was married, and there were boundaries we wouldn't cross. But that night, with both of us feeling vulnerable, the lines blurred. Jake confided in me that his marriage had been difficult lately, and I found myself opening up about my own heartbreak. After a few too many drinks, the attraction we'd always ignored bubbled to the surface. One thing led to another, and before I knew it, we were back at my place. The next morning, I woke up with a headache and regret. Jake and I both agreed it was a huge mistake. We decided to put it behind us and never speak of it again. We both knew it was wrong. It was a mistake, one we promised to never repeat. I thought that was the end of it. I was already dealing with so much emotionally, and I didn't want to add any more complications. I tried to move forward and pretend that night never happened. Later that same morning, my sister's husband, Alex, showed up at my door. I was shocked to see him, suitcase in hand. He told me that after our conversation at the bar, he had gone home late. My sister, who has always had zero tolerance for his drinking, was furious. She told him to pack his things and leave. Alex didn't have many options. His closest friends are all married with kids, and crashing on their couches wasn't really possible. He couldn't afford a hotel for an extended stay, and he didn't want to impose on anyone who might judge him for the argument. Given our close relationship, I was the only person he felt comfortable turning to. You see, Alex and I have always been close, like brother and sister. Even before he married my sister, we got along incredibly well. When he asked if he could stay at my place, it didn't feel strange at all. I have a fairly large home with a spare room, so offering him a temporary place to stay wasn't a big deal. I wanted to help him out, especially since he seemed so lost and didn't have anywhere else to go. Alex stayed at my house for about a week. My sister knew he was staying at my place. Eventually, she cooled down and she invited Alex back home. I thought everything would return to normal, but I was wrong. A couple of months later, I found out I was pregnant. I was in complete shock. I've been married for decades and never got pregnant, and here I am pregnant after one night stand. After the divorce, I'd accepted that it probably wasn't going to happen. But here I was, nearly 40, unexpectedly pregnant. It felt like a miracle. Despite the difficult circumstances, I wanted to keep the baby. I wanted this child, even if it meant raising them on my own. When I told Jake, he was shocked. We both knew it would be impossible to keep our secret if people started asking questions, but we decided to try. Jake and I agreed not to disclose the truth about the baby's parentage. We wanted to protect his marriage, his family, and everyone else involved. I told myself that I could handle the situation and raise this child on my own. I thought I was making the right decision. Then, I told my sister I was pregnant. I hoped she would be happy for me, or at least offer some support. Instead, her reaction caught me completely off guard. At first, she was surprised, but then she became suspicious. Her response felt more like an interrogation. She immediately started questioning me about the father, demanding details, pressing for a name. I told her it had been a one-night stand and that I didn't remember his name, but she didn't seem to believe me. Her questions only grew sharper and more insistent. Instead of feeling supported, I felt cornered, like I was defending myself rather than sharing good news. Her questions didn't stop, no matter how many times I tried to end the conversation or shift the focus back to what I had already told her. She started asking questions. When I found out, how far along was I? I answered honestly, not realizing that she was doing the math in her head. Once she pieced together that my conception date overlapped with the week Alex stayed at my house, she accused me of sleeping with her husband. I was stunned. I tried to explain that it wasn't true, but she didn't believe me. She insisted that if it wasn't Alex, I should be able to tell her who the father was. But I couldn't. I couldn't tell her it was Jake without tearing apart her relationship with her best friend and causing irreparable damage to both families. I thought my silence was the best way to protect everyone, but my sister saw it as proof of my guilt. She demanded a DNA test, and when I refused, she said she never wanted to see me again until I proved Alex wasn't the father. Now I'm stuck. I can't tell her the truth, but by staying silent, I've lost her trust. I don't know what to do. Am I the a-hole for refusing to reveal the father of my child, even if it's destroying my relationship with my sister? It sounds like OP's sister is projecting her own insecurities onto OP. It's really unfair for her to demand a DNA test and accuse OP of being untruthful when there's no concrete evidence that her husband is involved. OP has every right to keep the father's identity to herself, especially if revealing it would hurt other people and create even more drama. That being said, I can understand why she's upset. This situation does look suspicious to her, and she's probably feeling vulnerable. Still, that doesn't excuse her behavior. It might be worth calmly reminding her that OP is telling the truth, and that OP doesn't deserve to be accused of lying. OP could also let her know that these accusations are damaging their relationship, and that OP needs her to trust her. And now let's hear the community's opinion. It's clear you're in a really tough spot, but you might need to reconsider the long-term impact of staying silent. Right now, you're holding on to this secret to protect Jake's marriage and his family. I get that you're trying to do the right thing by sparing everyone more pain, but at what cost? Your sister has completely cut you off, and that's not something that can just be brushed aside. If the relationship with your sister is important to you, maybe it's time to think about how you could share the truth without causing even more harm. That might mean having a hard, honest conversation with Jake first, or considering how to frame things in a way that's as constructive as possible. I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but letting this misunderstanding fester will likely lead to even deeper resentment. If repairing your bond with your sister matters, opening up, at least partially, might be the only path forward. It sounds like you're in a no-win situation. You have every right to keep the father's identity private, but I can see how your sister's reaction is making things even harder. If you don't tell her the truth, she's going to keep assuming the worst. If you do tell her, you risk damaging other relationships that are important to her. No matter what you choose, someone's going to be hurt. Maybe the best approach is to try to focus on what you want for yourself and your child, rather than trying to satisfy everyone else. This is your pregnancy, and you're the one who has to live with the decisions you make. If you feel like you're doing the best you can under the circumstances, then you don't owe anyone else a confession. At the same time, if you think sharing the truth would help rebuild trust with your sister, it's worth considering. Either way, it's important to prioritize your own mental health and well-being, because this kind of stress isn't good for you or your baby. Update. I decided to tell my sister the truth. I sat her down and admitted that Jake, her best friend's husband, was the father of my baby. I pleaded with her not to tell her best friend. I begged her to keep it between us so we wouldn't destroy another family. I told her how deeply I regretted what had happened, how I hadn't planned for it, and how I just wanted to move forward without causing more harm. I was hoping for some understanding, but her reaction was far from that. She was furious. She told me I was disgusting and couldn't believe I would do something so cruel to another woman, especially after what I had just been through with my own ex-husband's betrayal. She said I should have known better, that I should have stopped myself before crossing such a terrible line. She said I could get rid of the baby if I wanted to make things right. Her words were cutting, and she made it clear that she couldn't look at me right now. She said she needed space and time to process everything I had told her. For now, she doesn't want to see or talk to me. I can't blame her for feeling the way she does. I know what I've done was wrong, and I hate that it's caused her so much pain. I just hope that in time she can find it in her heart to forgive me, or at least accept that I'm trying to take responsibility and move forward. 14. Dad had a health scare which turned out to be fine. He made a will. He sat us down and talked about it to me, his wife, and her children. They are both getting a stake in his business, and as there are 3 of them, they end up as a majority. As 2 of them are older, they will get to be a part of it immediately. He said my stepmother also counts as a shareholder. Then he stated money-wise his wife is getting 50%, which she intends on giving 30% to her children. On top of that, those children get 10%, the same as me and my sister. He stated our parents had set up a trust fund for my sister and our grandmother had given her money upon her death before I was born. Most sentimental stuff are going to his wife and my sister, grandmother's stuff, and as I didn't know her, this is why. Therefore, I am getting the least amount of money and have no say in the business when he retires, as the stepfamily have majority control. I told him to give my inheritance to his new family. It confirms I am the afterthought. I know it is his money, but it hurts. Everyone else was ecstatic. Their mother played the game well, having affairs pay off. Am I in the right to be upset and reject this insulting inheritance? I told all of them during his family meeting. He said he would ask again when I was 16 if I wanted it. He doesn't have to give you anything, and he isn't even dead yet. If you feel the same way when he is dead, give it to charity. Fighting about it while he's still alive is gross. Not the a-hole. Your father should have gave you and your sister the majority considering you are his biological children, and it could help you all out. Unfortunately, you're the a-hole. You are upset because his new family is being given the same respect as you are, and that hurts. But he now sees his step-siblings as his children. Blood isn't the only bond, and while this is painful, you have to look at his wife as his wife, and not the woman he cheated with. Sorry. Hi. So, quick context. My dad remarried when I, 40s female, was in my 20s and had a daughter, Kaylee, with his wife, who also had 2 older kids. Around that time, I was setting up my family and had my older daughter, Charlotte, a couple months before Kaylee was born. I was not very involved in his family. We would talk a couple times a year, exchange Christmas cards, but I didn't really get close to Kaylee. A couple of years ago, my dad passed away. And when Kaylee was 16, her mom also got sick and passed. My stepsister's other 2 kids were still in college, young adults, when this happened. So I was approached to take care of Kaylee. As I was the most settled in life, had a house, job, and 2 kids. Truthfully, it wasn't something I really wanted to do, but she would have otherwise ended up in the system. My husband and I took her in and have always treated her the same as our daughters. She got an allowance, extracurriculars, tutoring when necessary. The only issue was that we had 3 bedrooms. Charlotte was uncomfortable sharing with a stranger and chose to bunk with her younger sister, so Kaylee got a room to herself. My girls didn't complain and have always been welcoming to Kaylee. It was always planned that when Kaylee turned 18, graduated high school, she would go to her other siblings and perhaps attend college there. However, she asked to stay an extra year with us due to wanting to move in with her boyfriend here and needed to save up. We agreed, but decided to fix up our basement into an apartment for Charlotte, so she and her sister would finally have their own space. When Kaylee found out about the apartment, she was upset that it had not been offered to her and her boyfriend. We discussed the room situation, and I thought it had been settled. However, she recently moved out suddenly, leaving only a note stating that we clearly didn't think of her as being part of the family. I feel very horrible, and am wondering if I was an a-hole. Not the a-hole. You took in a teenager you didn't want, nor had an obligation to. She got her own room in your house, fed, clothed, schooled, and provided for. When she, on her own, decided she wanted to stay longer, you agreed. Making up a room, a place in the basement, is logical if your girls are growing and need some space from each other, and you suddenly have a prolonged house guest. Who had her own room? Your half-sister seems a little entitled, frankly. She's definitely entitled, but I hope OP grants her some kind thoughts, though OP was more than good enough to her. Definitely not the a-hole, and certainly did more than most would have. She was a teenager who lost her family quite suddenly and was shoved into another house where she didn't fit in. I can't imagine how that feels. Not the a-hole. You are under no obligation to take in a boyfriend. The apartment is not showing favorites. Kaylee needs to take on full responsibility if she wants to play house with her boyfriend. If she was your eldest daughter, I would say the same. No boyfriends in my house. Go ahead. My house, my rules. Not the a-hole. Charlotte has shared a room for 2+ years with her younger sister to give Kaylee her own space. Kaylee was always planning to move at or around 18, so I don't really see how Charlotte getting the downstairs apartment is unfair. You were nice enough to take a stranger into your home, clothe, house, and feed them until a predetermined time. I'd call you saints instead of being ungrateful. My fiancé's parents divorced when he was 13. He went with father-in-law and saw his mom a couple times a year from then on. Though we rarely see mother-in-law, she is being a pain in the butt about the wedding. So I have grown to dislike her and might be biased here. We recently had dinner with father-in-law and his family. Father-in-law's brother was going on about how unfair the courts are and how much child support he has to pay. Then he looked at father-in-law, laughed, and said father-in-law did the smart thing, married a rich lawyer and then took the kid. So mother-in-law must have paid out her butt in child support. Edit, because some people were confused. Mother-in-law is the rich lawyer. Father-in-law didn't leave her for anyone. Father-in-law tried to brush it off, but said that she never paid. Everyone at the table was horrified and telling him he should sue her. Father-in-law said he didn't want her to pay. His brother's girlfriend said that was sexist, and as a woman she should still have to pay. Father-in-law finally got annoyed and said that he felt so guilty about the affair that he wanted to make it up to her. He also felt he pressured her into having my fiancé. So he asked if it would make her life easier and help her heal if he took their son, and she could just pretend it didn't happen. He said that was his parting gift, and he is glad he did it, because mother-in-law deserved to get something out of his affair. I was horrified. I feel that wasn't father-in-law's decision, and that money belonged to my fiancé. I voiced my opinion, and father-in-law glared at me and said mother-in-law was the victim of his cheating and deserved one good thing. I said that wasn't his decision to make, and that he robbed his son. Father-in-law told me to stop, and it is none of my business. I didn't say anything else, but I guess I couldn't really control my face, because I was shocked that father-in-law could do that, and disgusted that he used his son as a bargaining chip to ease his guilt. This conversation somehow got back to mother-in-law. I'm pretty sure I know who told her, but she went off on a rant about me and apparently hates me now. You're the a-hole, and your reaction was super trashy. How embarrassing to concern yourself over money that 1. Isn't yours, and 2. Doesn't exist. You're the a-hole. It is none of your business. Also, just in case you don't understand how child support works, the money is for the child's daily expenses. It is not the child's money, so his mother or father did not rob him. It sounds like his father was financially able to raise his son without child support. He apparently also felt guilty pressuring her to have the baby while having an affair. He took responsibility for his behavior by not requesting any support. Butt out and shut up about it. It doesn't have anything to do with you. Quit trying to start drama in the family. Kindly, you're the a-hole. Child support money is not money that is given to the child. This money didn't belong to your fiancé. As long as your fiancé grew up with shoes on his feet and food in his belly, then what's the harm? Child support money is to support the parent raising the child. If father-in-law didn't need the money, then no harm's done. It's not like mother-in-law didn't want to pay. Father-in-law didn't want her to. It's none of your business. When my mom was young, her mom, my grandma, came up with this special birthday cake recipe they used to make together every year for both their birthdays. My grandma died when my mom was 16, and my mom treasured that recipe after she lost her. When she had my brother, 20 male, and me, 18 female. She carried on using it for us, and we'd all make it together 3 times a year. It was something she felt was a little tradition, and mentioned maybe we could pass it on to our kids when we have them, and wanted to do it. Mom died when I was 9, and my brother was 11. We started making it together for each of our birthdays every year. Dad remarried soon after Mom died. He has 3 children with our stepmother. Our stepmother is jealous of the cake tradition we had with our mom, that she left to us, and she didn't share with our dad. She always tried to come up with a recipe of her own to share with her kids, but it never worked out. According to my dad, she always hoped we would offer to share the recipe with her and our half-siblings, and that it could become a bigger family recipe. But we didn't. A year ago, my half-sister told me she wished she could be part of the tradition. I explained to her that it was something mine and my brother's grandma started with our mom, that it was a special thing just for us. She understood. I encouraged her to work with her mom to figure something out. Apparently, they haven't got something they like, or have as much fun making as my brother and I have with the cake from our mom and grandma. My stepmother asked me for the recipe for the upcoming birthdays of my half-siblings. She said it's time that she be considered family enough, and them too, to get in on the cake recipe and the tradition, which should be for family regardless of how they're family. Her words. I said no. I told her I would not share the recipe with her. My brother told her no as well, though he was pretty blunt with her about it. I just explained it meant a lot to keep it for just us and Mom and Grandma. She cussed me out on the phone and ended the call. I got a text after saying I was an a-hole for being exclusionary. Ever since, she's been sending me texts about how crappy I am as a person. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. It is your family recipe to do with what you want. Her behavior does not reflect how family behaves to each other. If she asks again, respond with, "Why would you want a recipe from a crappy person?" From my math, this petty woman has had almost a decade to get over this BS and come up with her own new recipe or tradition. That's almost 30 birthdays. She almost made a point of saying she wanted it for her kids, instead of saying something like she wants it for all us kids. I think she clearly sees this as disrespect. Adults who demand respect without giving an ounce of it are terrible. Towards her for all these years. All she wanted was to create a happy family. Clearly. Things would be perfect if OP and Bro would just stop being so mean to her and hand over this one recipe. She could have found a way to let them keep the tradition while just asking if maybe OP and her brother could compromise slightly. Like just the kids have a new cake as a new tradition or something completely different. But she wants to firmly butt in. I get the idea that OP and her brother are not unkind though. I think if their stepmother was actually lovely and kind, they probably would have eventually started to include her over the years in some way. I'm getting nasty stepmom vibes here, particularly also to be blamed on Dad. Not the a-hole. I would also screenshot those messages and send them to your dad and ask him to speak to her about the disrespect and tell her to get over it. I, 27 male, proposed to my fiancé, 28 female, last year. We are going to push our wedding to next year. Fiancé and I have a lot of different interests and friend groups. My group of friends are on the nerdy side and enjoy playing video games, watching movies, and D&D. My fiancé's group all come from wealthy families and very girly. Fiancé and I do love each other and plan on spending the rest of our lives together. Fiancé does like to hang with my friends, and I have taught her to play some video games. I don't mind hanging with her friends, but they can be very judgmental and make comments. Fiancé invited me to come out with her friends to celebrate, and I did get dressed up. The one friend wanted to try a new fancy restaurant that had opened. Most of the food items were over $20, and I ordered a large appetizer as my main dish. My fiancé ordered a salad and cocktail. Her friends ordered a bunch of drinks and expensive entrees. When it came time to pay the bill, her one friend looks at me and says, "Fiancé said you would be treating us out tonight." I gave my fiancé a look and told the waiter to split the entire check. I only paid for my fiancé and I. Fiancé didn't speak to me the entire ride back to our apartment. I did bring up what happened at the restaurant, and fiancé got defensive, saying that I shouldn't have made her look like a fool in front of her friends. Am I the a-hole for embarrassing my fiancé in front of her friends? Not the a-hole. The fact that she made a decision about your money without your knowledge or consent and acted like you are the bad guy for not going along with it is a serious red flag. You should really think about if you want to spend the rest of your life with this woman. Not the a-hole. She didn't tell you because she knew you'd have a problem with it and figured social pressure would make you cave. Manipulative as duck. And now she's saying you embarrassed her? Ha! She embarrassed herself. Not the a-hole. You didn't make that offer, so it's not reasonable to expect you to pick up the bill just because her friend made a crappy joke about doing so. Your fiancé should probably have a conversation with friend about why she thought that was an okay thing to pull. The only person who looks like a fool in this story is the friend who thought she could embarrass or trick you into picking up the whole bill, in my opinion.